I'm not here to scold anybody, but for some of you, it may feel like it. So, masochists, stay tuned. This is for you. All right, guys, here's the deal. We have been hearing over the course of the last few weeks, especially as those people who are in our no nonsense challenge are starting to do their scans and measure their progress. We hear things like, I don't see any difference, or I don't feel like I'm making any progress. I'm not sure if I'm actually improving. I feel stuck. Everything feels slow. Now, you don't have to be in our challenge for this to relate to you because I believe that we all feel like this from time to time. Most especially when we set a goal out in front of us, we have our eyes fixated on achieving that goal. And it's always interesting to me because when we sit down with people and we talk about, their long-term goals, let's say somebody has 30 pounds to lose. And they'll always say something along the lines of, I know it's going to take time. So I recognize that. I'll be patient. And yet at the same time, they feel as though their progress is going to look like a before and after photo. And what I mean by that is you go to bed one night looking one way, and then you wake up the next morning looking like that after photo. And it's just funny because, intellectually, we know enough to say it's not going to be like that. Yet emotionally, we want it to be like that. And that's also part of our expectations. And so we're always battling back and forth between these two expectations, right? One which is realistic, and we know this is probably the way it's going to be. And the other one that is somewhat unrealistic, and yet that is the one that we latch onto and that we draw our comparisons from. So here's the deal. I want to highlight two clients. I'm not going to name names, but here are two individuals who just this week alone had said, I'm not sure if I'm really making progress, or I don't feel like I'm making progress. Client number one, okay? Over the last week, this is 1 week progress. Last 2 weeks, they lost 4.4 pounds. Okay, that's pretty good. A loss of 2 pounds per week is always a good thing, but this individual says that they have not made any progress. But when we take it a step further, and because I have access to seeing everybody's scans and seeing what the results really are, I come to learn that this individual actually lost 5 pounds of body fat. So they lost 5 pounds of body fat, and they gained about a half a pound, just a little bit more, of lean mass. And if you're not familiar with the term lean mass is anything that's not fat. So it's water, it's muscle, it's bone, it's connective tissue. But since your connective tissue, since your bone, since the weight of your organs is not going to really change, typically this increase is either because you put on actual muscle tissue or your body is retaining a little bit more water, right? Either one of which, it's not a bad thing. If it's water, it flushes out of your body at some point. If it's muscle, hey, that's even better. You want to carry as much muscle as you possibly can for metabolic health. Now, the second individual, let's see, over the course of the last week, so this is over the course of the last 1 week, went down 1% in body fat. Now, her weight actually went up almost a half a pound. So stick with me. Her weight went up almost a half a pound, but she went down 1% in body fat. What happened? Well, actually, even though she had a half a pound increase in body weight, her fat mass, total body fat, went down nearly 2 pounds. And her lean mass went up 2.2 pounds. So you see, when we work the numbers, on the scale, it was a net increase of a half a pound, but it was actually nearly a 2 pound drop in actual fat. And I always love the comparison Corey Beth gives here, comparing a pound of fat to something that you could kind of see in your mind. 1 pound of fat is equal to about seven sticks of butter. That's pretty cool, right? Imagine losing 7 sticks of butter off your body. Like, that's pretty awesome. And so you cannot just dismiss a 2 pound loss in fat, because guess what? It actually shows. Even though you might not be seeing it, when you look at yourself in the mirror, because you're still seeing the person that you were last week or the weeks prior, the rest of us can see it. And it was interesting in that, speaking with our trainers who saw these individuals, they said they look different. Like they look like they lost. And yet we in our own heads do not believe that we've made any progress whatsoever. We just feel like everything has remained exactly the same. And that is almost never the case. But also, let's just take it a step further, because I know that the numbers do not always mean everything. They absolutely do not. Not when it comes to fat percentage and lean mass and body fat, because none of these measures are really super accurate. But what is accurate are measurements. And what measurements in particular? Those around our waistline. So the first client that I had highlighted before, she had a 1/2 inch drop in her hips. That's an area that a lot of us wouldn't mind losing a 1/2 inch, right? Your pants fit a little bit better and not maybe quite as snug. But this individual, she had we measured 3 areas around the waist, a 0.3 inch drop around the waist, a 0.4 inch drop around the natural waist, and then a 0.1 drop around max waist. So you run those numbers, and she had, over the course of 1 week, a drop of 3/4 of an inch around her midsection. That is progress. And that's what we need to stay focused on, is that sometimes we're not going to see, and we almost never are going to see, that wonderful before and after photo, from 1 week to the next, as much as we really want to. In fact, we've had numerous times in which somebody took a look at their before and afters, literally months apart, and it took that for them to finally realize that they were no longer the person in that before picture. Because I know that for many of us, what we struggle with is we still see the person, the heavy version of ourselves, when we look in the mirror. Or if our problem is the opposite, if we've been working hard to put on muscle mass and look more toned, we still see the skinny person with no muscle tone when we look in the mirror, despite these changes that everyone around us take notice of. So I want to just leave you guys with a little something that I actually pulled out of my own book. I forget how much stuff was actually in here, but I thought that this is a great way for some of us to look at this. Achieving your goal is a lot like a NASCAR driver. A driver can lead for 10 laps, then drop back to 8th for 60 laps, drop to 12th for another 120 laps, then slowly maneuver his way back up over the next 30 to 40 laps, take the lead, and win. And the whole time, even while sitting in 12th place, he never loses his cool or his confidence, because he knows it's a long race and all that matters is where you finish. All that matters is where you finish. So if you are getting caught up in the day-to-day, in the week-to-week, maybe you're putting forth all your effort, you did everything right, and things are moving in the opposite direction. Don't lose your cool. It's a long race. You must stay the course. And if you stay that course, you are likely to win that race. But the person who never wins that race is the person who does drop back to 12th. And then because they feel the discouragement of no longer being in first or near the front, they then allow themselves to drop back to 15th, to 18th, to 32nd. Don't be that person. No matter where you're sitting right now, just know that you have the opportunity to still win. But in order to do that, you still have to remain in the race. And you also need good counsel from people who actually can see and know what is going on. Don't rely upon your own judgment, because your own judgment is likely what got you in this place. And it's likely the reason why you struggle. And you don't need to struggle. When you have the right people in your corner, when you have the right pit crew to tune you up and to make sure that you get back out there, you get out there doing the right thing and helping you to just trust the process, trust where you're going, you'll get there. So I hope that helps somebody today who's maybe a little down on themselves, or maybe feeling like they haven't been doing enough or as good as they believe they should be doing. But trust me, for those of us who are watching you from the outside, we see what you're doing. We see the progress that you're making. Just stay in the race. Catch you guys tomorrow.